Inside the $5 million TikTok dream home scheme, true crime story they showed millions, their perfect TikTok life. But behind the filters was a $5 million lie that turned a marriage into a crime. Stay till the end because the betrayal inside this relationship is even darker than the fraud itself. And when the truth finally comes out, you'll have to decide who was really in control. So if you're into true crime stories that expose fake luxury, manipulative love, and the real cost of online fame, like subscribe and comment who you think was pulling the strings. She built the dream on camera. She learned early where to look when she wanted love. Straight into the camera lens. The ring light bloomed like a second sun in the corner of the living room, smoothing her skin, brightening her smile, erasing the fear that flickered whenever the screen went dark. "Good morning, dreamers," she said, voice warm and practiced, palms open as if she were offering something sacred. "Today we're talking manifestation and how love multiplies when you build together." Hearts climbed the screen, comments rolled. She breathed easier when they did. Online, she was optimism made flesh. She believed in vision boards and morning routines, in speaking abundance aloud so the universe could hear. She filmed coffee poured slowly into a white mug, her hands steady, nails neutral. She filmed affirmations written on the bathroom mirror in a careful script. She filmed herself laughing, turning slightly so the background looked airy and uncluttered, the corners of their apartment cropped away. When she spoke about earning everything together, she meant it the way people mean vows, aspirational, forward-facing, already polished. The numbers came later. For now, there was only the story. She told it every day a little differently until it felt true. "We didn't come from money," she said once, eyes shining. "We came from grit." She never said whose grit. She never said how close the fear sat to her ribs, a constant pressure, a memory of eviction notices and overdraft fees, of her mother whispering in the kitchen about making it stretch. Poverty, she knew, was loud when it arrived and humiliating when it stayed. She learned to perform silence around it. Off camera, the quiet roared. She replayed videos at night, scanning her face for cracks. Was the smile too eager? Was the joy believable? She checked follower counts the way some people checked pulses. When they dipped, even slightly, her chest tightened. Relevance felt fragile, like glass held up to light. She told herself this was normal. Everyone worried. Everyone hustled. The algorithm was a tide. You learned to swim or you disappeared. The dream house entered her life as a feeling before it had a shape. It came to her in anxious flashes while she lay awake, scrolling through listings she pretended were just inspiration. High ceilings meant breath. Big windows meant safety. A gate meant control. She talked about it to her audience like a ritual. "Picture where you want to wake up," she said, whisper soft. "Picture peace." In private, the picture steadied her hands. A house wasn't excess. It was armor. Sometimes, while she filmed, she angled the camera so a shoulder or a forearm appeared at the edge of the frame, a suggestion rather than a reveal. He preferred it that way. "Mystery performs better," he'd said once, passing through the room without stopping. She took that as wisdom. She took most things as wisdom. Off-screen, he stayed off-screen, a voice from another room, a presence that grounded her and frightened her in equal measure. She wanted him proud. She wanted him calm. She spoke directly to her followers, a practiced intimacy that felt like prayer. "We don't chase," she said. "We align." She believed alignment could fix what effort couldn't. When brands emailed, she replied within minutes. When they didn't, she told herself patience was part of the work. She filmed gratitude lists and morning light, even on days when the rent reminder pinged her phone and the word due made her swallow hard. Gratitude was cheaper than therapy. Gratitude was content. The comments became a chorus she carried everywhere. "You inspire me. I needed this today. How do you stay so positive?" She answered what she could, heart emojis and gentle encouragement, a benevolence she rationed carefully. Every kindness was an investment. Every post was a brick laid toward something solid. She imagined walking through a foyer someday, fingers brushing cool stone, the echo proof that she'd escaped. The house was a promise to her past self, never again. At night, she negotiated with fear like an old acquaintance. In her mind, spreadsheets existed like spells, columns and commas that could turn wanting into ownership, risk into inevitability, and faith into figures she didn't have to read, only trust. Because trust felt easier than understanding right now. She promised it growth. She promised it security. She promised it a future where bills were automatic and silence meant peace, not absence. She rehearsed conversations she might never have to have, defenses she might never need. If the dream demanded faith, she had it. If it demanded performance, she was fluent. The day she posted the video about earning everything together, she felt the familiar tremor and steadied herself. "This is for anyone who's scared," she said, eyes shining just enough. "You're not behind, you're building." When she stopped recording, the room seemed smaller, the walls closer. She glanced toward the other room, listening for footsteps, for reassurance, for the sound of numbers being handled by someone who understood them better than she did. She pressed save, exhaled, and waited for the math to arrive. He made the math work. He did not enter the marriage like a promise. He entered it like a solution. Numbers came naturally to him, clean and obedient, lining up the way feelings never did. Where she spoke in hopes and timelines, he spoke in margins and leverage. He listened to her fears with the patience of someone translating a foreign language, nodding not in agreement, but in calculation. "This is workable," he said often, a phrase that landed like reassurance without warmth. He handled the money the way a surgeon handled a blade, steady, precise, detached. Spreadsheets replaced conversations. Accounts replaced comfort. When she hovered behind him, watching columns scroll past, he didn't look up. "You don't need to understand all of it," he said, gently but firmly. "That's my part." Authority softened his voice. Certainty made him sound kind. He reframed everything. Risk was not danger. It was intelligence acting early. Debt was not burden. It was acceleration. Fear, he explained, was the instinct of people who waited too long and paid more for it. "You're thinking emotionally," he told her once, not unkindly. "I'm thinking strategically." The implications settled between them, heavy and unspoken. Strategy won marriages. Emotion complicated them. Their roles clarified without negotiation. Her visibility opened doors. His confidence walked them through. She brought attention. He converted it. She filmed affirmation videos. He timed wire transfers. When she mentioned a comment questioning their lifestyle, he dismissed it with a smile. "People project," he said. "They don't understand scale." Scale was his favorite word. It made everything feel inevitable. At night, when she admitted she felt scared, he didn't argue. He corrected. "That's just growth discomfort," he said, hand resting on her shoulder like a weight. If it felt safe, it wouldn't be worth it. She learned to nod. She learned that doubt sounded childish when spoken aloud. He never raised his voice. He never had to. The house began as a model on his screen, rotating slowly, flawless and unreal. He talked her through it the way a teacher guided a student through a proof. Income streams, future projections, reasonable assumptions. "Everyone does this," he said when she hesitated. "They just don't talk about it." Silence, again, became wisdom. Transparency was for people without ambition. She asked one question she immediately regretted. "Is this legal?" The pause was brief but surgical. "Legal is flexible," he said. "Ethical is subjective. What matters is outcome." He smiled then, a practiced expression that suggested mastery rather than malice. "We're not stealing," he added. "We're optimizing." The words slipped into place, smooth and convincing. Paperwork appeared in stacks. Forms pre-filled, numbers rounded upward just enough to feel aspirational. He slid documents toward her, pen already uncapped. "This aligns with where we're going," he said. She hesitated, fingers hovering. He leaned back, calm. "Do you trust me?" It was not a question meant to be answered slowly. She signed, not because she understood, but because trust felt easier than resistance. Because saying no would require a vocabulary she didn't have. Because the dream house had started to feel like proof that her work meant something. He gathered the pages, efficient, satisfied. The line was crossed without ceremony, without language. It felt less like a decision and more like gravity. After, he kissed her forehead, absent-minded. "This is how grown-ups build," he said. She laughed a little too quickly and reached for her phone. The camera waited. She adjusted the ring light, centered herself, and spoke about teamwork while he returned to his numbers, already calculating what came next. Viral love, invisible lies their audience multiplied faster than either of them admitted out loud. Views climbed into 6 figures, then 7. Brands arrived with casual emails that pretended not to be impressed, offering free products first, then money, then contracts that used words like partnership and alignment. Followers praised their discipline, their restraint, their ability to delay gratification while preaching abundance. The comments crowned them aspirational, the kind of couple people studied for clues. She filmed it all, careful and glowing. Morning routines, desk shots. Coffee beside a laptop that never showed its screen. "We believe in structure," she told the camera, smiling. "Consistency creates freedom." Behind her, the door to the office stayed closed. Numbers lived there now, multiplying quietly, demanding attention. Fame felt less like joy and more like a deadline. He worked later. He always had. Papers spread across the desk in neat stacks, marked and remarked, adjusted by degrees that felt harmless until they weren't. Income became projected income. Projected income became reasonable expectation. Reasonable expectation became written fact. "It's narrative," he said when she lingered. "Banks buy stories, not feelings." He didn't look up when he spoke. He never had to. Documents changed in small ways. A digit nudged higher. A contract date shifted. A confirmation email drafted, then printed, then filed. The printer hummed like an accomplice. She learned not to ask what each page meant, only where to initial. The act of watching made her complicit. The act of not watching made her safe. She chose safety and told herself it wasn't the same as guilt. Online, she repeated his language without realizing it. "We diversified early. We leveraged opportunities. We planned ahead." The words tasted unfamiliar but powerful. Followers applauded the intelligence, the foresight. When someone asked how they qualified so young, she laughed lightly. "Discipline," she said, "and teamwork." The lie slid out smoothly, cushioned by praise. Their arguments were brief, efficient, and never explosive. "I don't like this," she said once, late, voice low. He paused, fingers hovering over the keyboard. "You don't like uncertainty," he corrected. "No one does." Another time, she asked why a number looked different. He smiled patiently. "Because context changes," he said. "You trust context when it favors you." Each dismissal arrived calm and reasonable, leaving her with nothing sharp enough to fight. Love shifted shape. It became conditional, a reward for obedience. When she hesitated, affection thinned. When she complied, it returned easily, warmly. She learned the pattern quickly. Silence preserved peace. Agreement preserved intimacy. He never threatened. He never demanded. He simply made the alternative feel childish, impractical, disloyal. The followers noticed the house first. Not the address, just the light, the echo, the way her voice sounded larger. "Manifested," she captioned a video, smiling into a space that felt borrowed. Privately, she slept poorly, waking with her jaw clenched, dreams crowded with forms she couldn't read. In the mornings, she filmed anyway. Consistency created freedom. She said it until it felt like fact. She started hearing his explanations before he gave them, anticipating objections, editing her thoughts. When fear rose, she framed it as gratitude misfiring. When doubt whispered, she drowned it in metrics. Views were up. Engagement was strong. Growth justified everything. If the internet believed them, maybe that belief could carry weight elsewhere too. One night she asked softly, "What if this catches up to us?" He closed the laptop, finally turning to face her. "It won't," he said. "Because we're careful." The certainty in his voice felt like a promise and a warning. He kissed her cheek, already distant. She nodded, already agreeing. She went back to the camera the next day and spoke about love as partnership, about trust as foundation. Hearts flooded the screen. Applause drowned out conscience. The lies remained invisible, threaded through spreadsheets and signatures, while viral love did what it did best, made everything look effortless and made leaving feel impossible. Followers notice everything. The comments shifted first, subtle as a change in weather. Questions slid in between praise, phrased politely, wrapped in admiration. How did you qualify so fast? Any tips on financing? Did you go conventional or something creative? She told herself curiosity was a compliment, proof that people wanted to follow in their footsteps. Still, she began reading more slowly, scanning for tone, for accusation hiding inside emojis. Videos that once felt effortless now required rehearsal. She re-recorded explanations about discipline, about patience, about saying no to vacations and yes to spreadsheets. The words sounded thinner each time. When she missed a beat, commenters noticed. Screenshots circulated, timelines were compared. The audience that had built her up now leaned closer, measuring her breath. Private messages arrived next. Some were kind, others weren't. One stood out because it didn't flatter. A name she hadn't said in years appeared in her inbox, familiar and unwelcome. "Hey, I've been watching. Something doesn't add up." The message was careful, restrained, the voice of someone choosing concern over drama. The friend mentioned dates that overlapped, numbers that felt inflated, a lender they'd never heard of. "Just checking you're okay," it ended. She stared at the screen until the phone dimmed. When she showed him, he didn't read the whole thing. He didn't need to. "This is paranoia," he said, dismissive but controlled. "And paranoia spreads." He told her jealousy always dressed itself up as concern. That people who failed early resented those who succeeded fast. "You don't owe anyone clarity," he added. "Transparency is a trap." The way he said it made disagreement feel naive. The comment sections grew teeth. Followers asked for proof now, not inspiration. Someone tagged a loan officer. Someone else joked about fraud with a laughing emoji. She laughed too online, brushing it off. Offline, she checked locks twice. He noticed and sighed. "You're letting noise inside," he said. "That's how people sabotage themselves." Betrayal, he implied, didn't start with action. It started with listening. She began questioning herself instead. Had she misunderstood the process? Had she exaggerated the danger in her head? He reminded her how common creative accounting was, how systems rewarded confidence. "Illegal is a strong word," he said one night, not looking at her. "Smart people use gray areas, that's why they win." The reassurance landed softly, reshaping memory. Maybe she'd panicked too early. Maybe fear had always distorted things. She stopped responding to the former friend. Silence felt safer than explanation. When more messages arrived, she deleted them unopened, telling herself she was protecting peace. He praised her restraint. "See," he said, "you're learning." Approval became a currency, doubt became expensive. The camera caught her smiling more tightly. Viewers noticed again. "You seem stressed," someone wrote. She posted a gratitude video that night, voice steady, eyes bright. "Growth isn't linear," she said. "Trust the process." Behind the scenes, he adjusted numbers again, calm and efficient, as if the scrutiny confirmed his importance. Her memories blurred at the edges. She replayed early conversations, trying to locate the moment things tipped. Had she agreed? Had she asked? Or had it simply happened, step by step, reasonable each time? When she imagined explaining it aloud, the words collapsed. Complexity sounded like guilt. Simplicity sounded like loyalty. Late one evening, she whispered, "What if they're right?" He didn't raise his voice. He didn't even frown. "Then you'd be choosing them over us," he said. The statement hung between them, quiet and final. She nodded, ashamed of the relief that followed. Choosing him meant not choosing fear. The followers kept watching. Screens refreshed. Questions stacked. And somewhere beneath the noise, Her certainty thinned until it felt less like belief and more like repetition, something she said often enough to make it stick, hoping the math would keep working, hoping memory would stay flexible, hoping smart and illegal were still far enough apart to matter. When the camera finally turned off, courtrooms replaced content the way winter replaces color, abruptly and without apology. The lights were harsher here, fluorescent and unforgiving, flattening every face they touched. No ring light could soften the angles. No filter could smooth the truth. She sat at the defense table in a borrowed jacket, hands folded, nails bare, watching strangers study her as if she were an exhibit. Once, millions had waited for her to speak. Now a clerk called her name. The mugshot came first. A camera flashed, sterile and efficient, capturing her at her most unguarded. She thought of all the times she'd angled her chin just right, trained her smile to suggest ease. This image asked nothing of her. It took. When she saw it later, stripped of context and caption, she barely recognized herself. The algorithm had loved her. The record did not. Testimony felt like disassembly. Questions arrived in careful order, lifting moments from her life and laying them flat. She answered slowly, aware of every syllable, the weight of yes and no. When she spoke about documents, about signatures, about trusting someone who sounded certain, the courtroom stayed quiet. Silence here wasn't approval, it was attention. He sat behind her, composed as ever, eyes forward, jaw set. He did not flinch when numbers were read aloud. He did not look at her when she described fear. The man who once translated risk into reassurance now watched as if from a distance, as if observation alone could absolve him. She wondered when she'd stopped being part of the math. When it was her turn to tell the story without captions, she felt the urge to perform rise and fall again. Old habits clung tightly. She resisted them. She spoke plainly about wanting safety, about believing that effort should lead somewhere solid. She admitted she hadn't understood everything. She admitted she'd wanted to. The truth sounded smaller than the lie, but heavier. Cross-examination sharpened the edges. Did she benefit? Yes. Did she post the house? Yes. Did she know it wasn't ordinary? She paused, then answered honestly, knowing honesty no longer guaranteed protection. The questions circled intimacy, marriage, loyalty. Each answer peeled something away. Justice, she learned, was less about outrage than precision. Sentencing day came without ceremony. Dates were set. Numbers were final. He finally turned toward her then, just once, expression unreadable. There was no apology. There was no reassurance. Whatever had bound them through fear and ambition loosened quietly, like a not-losing purpose. The marriage ended not with a fight, but with a verdict. The house emptied quickly. Furniture removed. Walls echoed. Dust gathered where art had once hung for photos. Neighbors slowed as they passed, curious, cautious. The gate stayed closed. The lights stayed off. It stood there, immaculate and hollow, a structure built to be seen, never lived in. Evidence disguised as shelter. She thought often about being watched. About how visibility had felt like control, like proof of existence. Now invisibility offered something gentler. In the quiet after court, she understood what the camera had always demanded. Not truth, but consistency. The law asked for neither performance nor polish. It asked for facts and took them. When the camera finally turned off, there was no outro. No lesson neatly framed. Only the knowledge that marriage could magnify both love and harm, that dreams could be weaponized, and that being seen came at a cost. The house remained, empty and silent, a reminder that some crimes look like success until no one is left watching. She was allowed a final statement. The room leaned in again, practiced at gravity. She spoke about accountability, about the difference between trust and surrender, about how easily love can be mistaken for leadership. She did not ask for mercy. She asked for understanding, knowing the distinction mattered. Understanding acknowledged harm without turning it into spectacle. Afterward, paperwork replaced applause. Forms for probation, schedules, rules that governed movement and silence. She signed carefully, remembering how easily ink once felt like progress. Outside, cameras waited anyway, strangers hoping for a reaction. She kept her eyes down and walked past, unlit, unbranded, finally alone. Time slowed. Days filled with mandated meetings and small routines that rebuilt the idea of mourning. Without an audience, she learned how much of herself had been shaped by response. She learned how quiet could bruise and heal at once. The urge to narrate never fully disappeared. It softened into journaling, into conversations without metrics. He appealed. He did not contact her. Their separation became official through documents as unemotional as spreadsheets. She felt grief without nostalgia, relief without triumph. Some bonds dissolve because they were never meant to stretch that far. In the end, the record closed. The captions stopped. The algorithm moved on. What remained were consequences and choices made visible only to those living with them. She carried forward a smaller truth, harder to share but easier to keep. That survival built on illusion always demands repayment, and the bill comes due when the lights go out. She visited the house once from the street, hands in pockets, breathing steady. It looked the same, indifferent. She turned away without filming, knowing some endings don't need witnesses. The truth didn't trend, but it held. That would have to be enough now. She walked home slowly, learning how to live without proof, applause, or permission. Ever again now.